Hey, we're about to make the Binge-Worthy podcast even more binge-worthy. This week may be our season finale, but if you check out our YouTube channel, Lion's Head Studio, we'll be releasing YouTube shorts of key moments from past episodes. And we'll release one short per week until we come back with our release of Season 2. Also, if you have any suggestions for scripts that you'd like us to break down, make sure to put them in the comments. And now, on with our show. Welcome to the Binge-Worthy Writing Podcast,
where we take a look at some of your favorite stories and we discuss what tricks, tips, and techniques make them bingeable.
I'm Jonathan. I'm a published short story author and screenwriter who really enjoys writing TV pilots, several of which have been under consideration by production companies, and I love telling stories.
And I'm Jackie. I'm a story consultant and sensitivity reader for Jonathan's scripts as well as for other writers, and I love talking about stories and how they can help create inclusive spaces for others.
And on this podcast, we discuss how great screenplays create bingeable stories.
We're committed to amplifying more than just the same traditional voices, so we'll be looking at a variety of TV shows, some of which you know and love,
and others you might not, but should consider checking out.
Since this is our first season, we thought that we should dedicate this entire season to discussing pilot episodes.
The first episode that sells a TV series and makes the audience want to watch more.
Each of our podcast episodes this season will cover a different element that a TV pilot could use to become a successful bingeable story.
Now that you know what makes us binge-worthy, let's talk about what makes a pilot binge-worthy.
And among the best TV pilots ever written was the pilot to Breaking Bad.
As many of you know, Breaking Bad was a neo-Western crime drama that ran for 5 seasons. It was an original concept not based on any previously existing intellectual property. And in 2014, it entered the Guinness World Records as the most critically acclaimed show of all time.
So what we'll do now is we'll do a dramatic reading of select scenes from the pilot of Breaking Bad,
which we will be doing through fair use for the purposes of educating our audience.
And every time something stands out to one of us, we'll stop the reading and talk about it.
We'll focus on what makes the storytelling stand out as excellent, but sometimes we might discuss the differences between what's written in the pilot and what got filmed.
And then, when we're done, we'll recap our takeaways.
Our usual disclaimer, Jackie and I may make some mistakes about the show's lore, but really we're here to give our take on just these select scenes and how they make the pilot great. And we'll try to keep our comments contained to just the show's pilot episode.
All right, let's get right into it.
For the purposes of orienting our audience, we'll be starting with the cold open. There's not a lot of dialogue that goes on. Eventually I'll read for Walt, but I think we should just switch off in terms of narrator, and we'll, every time we pause and come back, we'll just trade who's talking. Yeah, I'll kick us off here. Breaking Bad by Vince Gilligan. Teaser. Exterior cow pasture day. Deep blue sky overhead. Fat, scuddy clouds. Below them, black and white cows graze the rolling hills. This could be one of those California "it's the cheese" commercials. Except those commercials don't normally focus on cow shit. We do. Tilt down to a fat, round patty, drying olive drab in the sun. Flies buzz. Peaceful and quiet until, zoom. Wheels plow right through the shit with a splat. New angle. An RV is speeding smack dab through the pasture. No road in sight. A bit out of place to say the least. It's an old 70s-era Winnebago with chalky white paint and Bondo spots. A bumper sticker for the Good Sam Club is stuck to the back. The Winnebago galumps across the landscape, scattering cows. It catches a wheel and sprays a rooster tail of red dirt. Okay, so I'm going to pause right there real quick. So again, this is a cold open. We discussed the importance of a cold open in our pilot episode of Binge-Worthy. And so a lot of times, one thing that you really want in a cold open is the unexpected and layering unexpected thing on top of unexpected thing. And so here we sort of get our first tease of that where, we're focusing on this pile of cow feces until it sort of gets splattered. It's not exactly something you would think about opening a TV show on. And the script kind of calls attention to that, saying that the commercials that this aesthetic is trying to emulate don't normally focus on that kind of thing, but we do. So again, that's not something that those directions aren't necessarily shown verbatim, but kind of gives the cinematographer an idea of what to do with camera angles, and it kind of sets the tone there. haven't necessarily seen that kind of language pop up like that explicitly in a lot of scripts, but I mean, who am I to, call into question what's written here? This is very good in terms of saying like, hey, we're about to do some unexpected things.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the first things that popped up for me too. Like definitely going to some lengths to show this idyllic sort of setting is going to be something that we thwart a little bit. I mean, like you said, they're really explicit with that. But also something that I thought was, I guess, sort of like funny and wondering if it was also intentional with the zooming in on the poop is that it makes me think of like, oh, are they like he's in some deep shit or like,
nice.
like this is like a shitty situation sort of thing, which I think we certainly get the vibe of when he's like wildly driving, right? Like this is like they said, there's no road and stuff. So I don't know if that was like, necessarily intentional or it was just like this is the opposite of an idyllic thing, but I thought that was kind of nice.
Yeah, good point. Hadn't considered that, but I think that's definitely a viable read on this. Do you want to pick it up?
Sure. Interior Winnebago day. Inside, the driver's knuckles cling white to the wheel. He's got the pedal flat, scared, breathing fast. His eyes bug wide behind the faceplate of his gas mask. Oh, by the way, he's wearing a gas mask. That and white jockey underpants, nothing else. Buckled in the seat beside him lolls a clothed passenger also wearing a gas mask. Blood streaks down from his ear, blotting his t-shirt. He's passed out cold.
Okay, I'd like to pause there. So again, in our pilot episode of talking about cold opens, there's this thing that we talked about where you have to layer the unexpected. And so right here, we get a lot of that all at once. So besides the erratic driving, we've got gas masks, we've got, white underpants. There's a passenger that's also in a gas mask, blood is streaking down his ear, passed out cold. There's a lot of stuff that makes us question, hey, what is going on here? Also, another thing we talked about in our cold open episode is being really visual, creating this image that really sticks in your mind. And so gas mask plus tighty whities, like that's a pretty memorable image.
Yeah.
It's really hard to unsee that.
Yeah, definitely, like you said, kind of calls back to our pilot when we were doing The Walking Dead and just like bunny slippers in the middle of this like desolate place. So yeah, definitely does that. In addition to what we just like covered, it being, like a stressful situation, right? Like the white knuckles and everything that we were reading about. I also like watching this, I'm starting to think, okay, there's like some kind of exposure. That's weird. They're in an RV, but this like seems like it has nothing to do with a vacation or like some kind of chill, like drive, obviously. And was there an accident or some kind of violence? Like, I think the visuals are evocative enough that you kind of like already have those things in your mind. So kind of also hooks you in terms of asking questions.
Going off of that, it also mentioned that the RV has Bondo spots, which means that this is a broken down and sort of like spot patched RV. So this is not something that you would necessarily want to take on vacation, or you've taken it on vacation so many times you've had to patch it up. So yeah, now we're going to continue looking at these unexpected things. Behind them, the interior is a wreck. Beakers and buckets and flasks, some kind of ad hoc chemical lab, spill their noxious contents with every bump we hit. Yellow-brown liquid washes up and down the floor. It foams in a scum around 2 dead bodies. 2 freshly deceased Mexican guys tumble like rag dolls, bumping into each other. So I'm going to stop right there. So, like I mentioned, we're getting more unexpected stuff, but also this kind of hints at some of the story engine stuff we talked about in a previous episode, where we kind of have stakes attached where like we don't know what's going on, but we do see dead bodies, we do see like a lot of danger. So we know that whatever's going on is like a life or death sort of situation. And also we have someone in the passenger's side bleeding. We see dead bodies in a sort of ad hoc chemistry lab, which means that chemistry is being involved somehow, perhaps people dying from this. So we don't know exactly what the story is about, but we're starting to get some pieces of the story engine already. And also, I should point out that this cold open starts off in media res, which is a phrase that means like in the middle of everything. And so we later learn that, and this is what happens later, and then we Yeah, after the teaser's done, we flash back to something that happens like a few days ago, maybe a week ago. And so this kind of teases where we're going to get to. And then by the end of the episode, we kind of get back to the situation and find out how it resolves. And so that kind of ties into like a cliffhanger sort of thing, which we talked about last week. It sort of builds suspense. That's another thing that I should point out, that good cold opens build suspense, at least in terms of dramatic cold opens. Comedic cold opens do something a little bit different. But, it's raising all of these questions. It's sort of teasing that we don't know what the answers are, but we kind of have to keep watching to pay attention. Like every single frame here, every single new shot is almost like its own little cliffhanger, like teasing something. And we have to watch the rest of the pilot in order to learn what the resolution to this cliffhanger is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would say it might be just like I don't know, like my science nerd bias or something, but initially, like just seeing like beakers, flasks, right, like buckets and stuff, like already that part of my brain is like, oh, like that's interesting. Okay, this is getting like maybe science-y, like, does that mean it's going to be something kind of like complicated, or again, there's some amount of science, whether it's like, real or fictitious or something, like we don't really know yet. And so I think that adds another layer of like interest, right? We already before that we're thinking about some kind of exposure with the gas mask. So yeah, again, like you were saying, it keeps, bringing up questions, right? Like, did they make this and there was like an exposure, who set that off, et cetera, et cetera. So that was really cool. I would also add, certainly there's, like anything that's written in like a prior time and then like you're, reading it from the future, so to speak. There is like some amount of language that's like a little bit awkward. I mean, it's not maybe a huge thing when you're first reading, but it's just like Mexican guys on the floor, right? Like not super great, but I would say that it, at least in the US, does, in my mind, at least put some locations to the forefront of where they could be, right? So like in terms of where that culture might be more concentrated or represented. So I'm thinking, is this like, the Southwest somewhere in the US? Are we in California? Are we like, in some of those states that do border Mexico / like were Mexico at one point? But that's kind of like where my mind is going. Obviously, that's not the only place that you would find folks of that culture, like anywhere or like in the US. But in previous episodes, we kind of talked about these like shortcuts, right? Like where you would expect certain things because of tropes. And so like that's kind of where I was going with that.
Also, what you brought up is a great example of world building, where, and this is more mundane world building, where basically everything that you just said contributes to fleshing out where this takes place. But also the fact that there's a chemistry lab there too does a part of world building where we get the sense that, oh, chemistry is going to be an important part of this. And, a lot of people who have tuned into this episode when it was playing on TV, they also would have probably seen a commercial back when those things existed for TV shows to get like the little snippet that, oh, this is a story about a chemistry teacher who eventually goes to make meth. So this is a piece of information that the audience might have already had access to, and showing the chemistry lab early is kind of confirming to the audience, like, yes, we do have this part of the show in mind. Yeah. Please keep watching this because like we will get to that part of the premise eventually. But yeah, some great world building here, and it's not even something that's explained. So like the world building that we've sort of focused on in our podcast is stuff that's conveyed in dialogue and in exposition. But here it's just kind of alluded to and sort of shown. For our podcast episodes, talking about dialogue is easier because you can break down exactly what's said and whatnot. But this, it's masterfully done because it's simply shown, and the audience can sort of put together the pieces of the world building kind of on their own, which is another way to do world building, but you have to be really talented in order to do it that way, because if you don't do it the right way, the audience could draw the wrong conclusions, and then they get mad at you when they draw the wrong conclusions.
Right, and they're confused. I would also say, like, I think of all the episodes we've covered so far, this definitely, in my mind, maps on the most with The Walking Dead because it's only visuals and, like, to your point, very striking visuals. So easier for questions to be brought up, but also, like, certain things that are, like, helping the audience, like, figure it out for sure. for the world building. I would also say that because we're now like seeing a little bit more, getting more hints, possible chem lab or some kind of like sciencey situation inside of the RV, right? Again, like another contrast that makes me think of, okay, maybe this was covert, or like this is obviously very unusual, like in terms of just that contrast and placement. So I really like that too for like both, the world building and just keeping me engaged as a viewer.
Nice. All right.
Completing this picture is the blizzard of money. Yvonne's bag lies leaking 20s. 15, 20 grand in cash wafts around in the air or floats in the nasty brown soup. Close on the driver's eyes, he's panting like a steam engine. His mask fogs up until finally he can't see. Exterior, cow pasture, continuous. The Winnebago comes roaring over a berm and down into a deep gully. Too deep. Bam! The front bumper bottoms out, burying itself. Wah! The rear wheels spin air. The engine cuts off, silence again. The Winnie's door kicks open and out stumbles Underpants Man. He yanks off his gas mask, lets it drop. Stop there for a sec. Again, like just more layers here. Like the next thing that seems to be added to this is just like money flying around, right? Just money flying around, like there being like bags of money. Again, that's like another trope, right? To kind of clue in our viewers, but also, kind of play with expectations. Again, world building and stuff like that, right? Like usually money in a bag, right? Like that's concealed, not usually something that's associated with like legit transactions or things like that. So yeah, just thought that was another bit of a hint kind of leading us forward. And then, it just being really funny that we, obviously crash. He has to get out, and just him being, again, in his underpants with his gas mask. And it just being like another pretty striking visual.
Yeah, also that kind of alludes to a bit of the story goal of the story engine, all of this money. So it's revealed that Walter is trying to get this money to provide for his family because like he's going through a cancer diagnosis. He believes it to be terminal, and he doesn't want his life to be worth nothing when he passes. And so like he goes and he's trying to make all this money to provide for his family. At least that's what we learn in the pilot episode. We won't have time to read every single scene here, so like there's some stuff that we'll have to skip past. But this money does become a critical part of this story, and we'll see that it actually sort of gets bookended between the cold open and one of the final scenes as well. This is a thing that we keep coming back to. And it also kind of gets into the stakes. Also, we should sort of point out that because the cold open is also the ending of the story, there's also a bit of a lock-in here where we learn that because there are two dead bodies, well, now they're implicated in murder. And so Walter is kind of like stuck going down this road and the choices that he's made. Because he's responsible for the deaths of these two people. We don't really learn that in the cold open. We also won't be able to read the scene where he uses his knowledge of chemistry to be able to kill them. We will get to see him explaining it a little bit later. But he's kind of locked into his choice of like he is a criminal now. So like there's no way to unring that bell.
Sure.
All right. Pick it up. All right. Here we go. He's 40 years old, receding hairline, a bit pasty. He's not a guy who makes a living working with his hands. He's not a guy we'd pay attention to if we passed him on the street. But right now, at this moment, in this pasture, right now, we'd step the fuck out of his way. Underpants Man looks at the RV. End of the line for that. He listens hard. Out of the silence we hear sirens. They're faint, a few miles off, but growing louder. Our guy knows he's boned with a capital B. He holds his breath and leaps back inside the RV. Interior Winnebago continuous. A chrome 99mm clutched in the hand of one of the dead Mexicans. Underpants grabs it, tucks it in his waistband. His unconscious passenger, still strapped in his seat, lets out a groan. Underpants leans past him, yanks open the glove box. He comes up with a wallet and a tiny Sony camcorder. Exterior cow pasture continuous. Ducking outside, he starts breathing again. A short-sleeved dress shirt on a hanger dangles from the Winnebago's awning. Underpants pulls it on. He finds a clip-on tie in the pocket, snaps it to his collar. No trousers, unfortunately. So again, we're layering unexpected things. We're also learning a bit more about this guy. So we haven't had any characterization yet. At least nothing tangible that the viewer would see upon watching this. But the screenplay itself is doing its best at hinting at characterization. So, and again, we did a whole episode on characterization as well. So the clothes that he would use, so like a dress shirt and tie, is not really something that we would associate with someone who's running an underground chemistry sort of situation. Also, the screenplay goes back to the language that it used of, hey, normally he's not something that we would pay attention to, but in this show we are. So you kind of get the idea that this guy is kind of like a milquetoast nerdy guy, based upon the way that they say that like his hands aren't calloused, he looks pasty, so he's not like out in the sun, that sort of thing. So we're getting hints at characterization, which is very important.
I'd say that like for this part that you just read, as a viewer, my next question was like, okay, if he's like, this is the end of the line with the car, with the RV that I'm driving, like, what is the strategy basically? Like, is he, I don't know, is he gonna go like run off or et cetera, et cetera? And so I think like initially when he goes back in and we see like the focus of the gun like being clutched in one of their hands, part of me was like, okay, what's his exit strategy? So it is very engaging, like, as a viewer to try to figure out, this is a bit of a dead end, like what is this character going to do, right? So that's another thing to kind of keep us interested. And just like the choice that he makes there, again, I do think adds to the characterization, where instead of like maybe trying to set up a scene where like maybe the two people that are dead, like, I don't know, like killed each other or shot each other or something, like he's choosing to try to put on this guise of legitimacy, right? Like a tie, the shirt and stuff like that. This also might be a small detail, but I think for me, like it being a short sleeved, button down shirt tells me like it's formal, but not too formal. It's kind of like business casual. Like it's not gonna, at least for me, like I won't think of like, I don't know, like Wall Street or something like that. It's like a little bit dressy, but
it's also technically better for someone who performs chemistry experiments.
Sure.
I mean, as someone who has lots of experience with chemistry labs, like, yeah, it is like a good idea to have your skin covered like a whole bunch, but having something short sleeved to wear underneath a lab coat means that like if you do spill something and it manages to get under your lab coat, if it soaks into the shirt that you're wearing, the shirt is going to hold that stuff against your skin. So you need to get it off as soon as possible. Whereas like if it gets under your lab coat and goes on your skin, you can try to like jump into the emergency shower. So it might just be something that he has from his chemistry teaching. Also, just high school chemistry labs or community college chemistry labs, they don't have like really nasty stuff. So like if you get some stuff spilled on you, it's probably not going to be the worst stuff out there imaginable. So that's probably why he has short sleeves. Also, just because of like the heat of where he lives.
That's true. Yeah. So. I mean, definitely for, a lot of different reasons. It could, like you said, start either characterizing like him and what he does, or like the location, right? Like the world building that we were talking about. But yeah, like it being also a teacher, I think in general, like that makes sense. Again, the choices he's making, like, and the visuals, like a gun inside your tidy whities, like, again, very, very evocative and just like grabs the attention. And then the last thing was like the Sony camcorder. Yeah, part of me was wondering what that was about in terms of like, is he leaving some kind of like statement? What is he doing? So lots of interest for sure.
Yeah, we're actually going to get to that part. If you could pick up from he licks his fingers.
He licks his fingers, slicks his hair down with his hands. He's looking almost pulled together now, at least from the waist up. All the while, the sirens are getting louder. Underpants figures out how to turn on the camcorder. He twists a little screen around so he can see himself in it. Framing himself waist up, he takes a moment to gather his thoughts, then presses record.
My name is Walter Hartwell White. I live at 308 Belmont Avenue, Ontario, California, 91764. I am of sound mind. To all law enforcement entities, this is not an admission of guilt. I'm speaking now to my family. Skylar, you are the love of my life. I hope you know that. Walter Jr., you're my big man. I should have told you things, both of you. I should have said things. but I love you both so much, and our unborn child, and I just want you to know that these things that you're going to learn about me in the coming days, these things, I just want you to know that no matter what it may look like, I had all three of you in my heart. So right there, we get some great characterization.
Yeah, dang.
We get his motivation, hints at story goal, characterization. We learn that despite the situation this guy's in, why he's there. And we don't really have a whole lot of information about how he got there, which is why this is still very much kind of like a cliffhanger, but excellent at taking us into the mind of this guy who's doing all of this erratic stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I also think this is like a brief mention, but I think it's good characterization too. The fact that he adds, to all law enforcement entities, like this is not an admission of guilt, I'm of sound mind, those sorts of things. Because it's quite formal and procedural, it also makes me think of this man is very detailed and intelligent, in terms of how he's setting things up.
Good catch.
Yeah, I think that was also a good one for this.
All right, I'm going to take us to the end of the teaser because we are running a bit long here. The sirens are wailing now, on top of us. Walter White, the underpants man, turns off the camcorder. He carefully sets it on a bare patch of ground by his feet. Next to it he sets his wallet, lying open where it can be seen. Close on the wallet, a photo ID card is visible. Walt's smiling face is on it. It identifies him as a teacher at J.P. Wynne High School, Ontario Unified School District. Walt pulls the chrome pistol from the back of his waistband, aiming it across the tall weeds. He glints hard in the sun. Flashing red light bars speed into view, skimming the tops of the weeds, heading straight for us. Walt stands tall in his underpants, not flinching. Off him, ready to shoot the first cop he sees. End teaser. So, again, stakes and cliffhanger, because right after this, it goes to a flashback. To show us how we got to this point.
Sure.
So, yeah, we keep watching. So, in this teaser, we've got great example of a cold open. We got some good hints at characterization. We've done some world building. Mm-hmm. We've got a cliffhanger because this is a glimpse of what we're going to see in the future. And also, let's talk about tropes here for a minute, because this is technically a neo-Western. Mm-hmm. Breaking Bad does play with a lot of Western tropes, but modernizes them. And so, having a lone guy standing with a gun drawn,
sure.
Waiting for the local authorities to catch him, that's very much a Western trope. So we're checking off almost every single one of the boxes, and we've barely this was 3 pages worth of a screenplay. This is why this is one of the greatest TV shows of all time.
Yeah, definitely very tight writing. And I think even before, I'm not as familiar with that genre, so even before you said that very last bit, it was making me think of really good, it being really good characterization in terms of the choice he makes, right? He's said his statement, what is he going to do now? One option that popped into my head, honestly, was is he going to hurt himself? So it's kind of they can't catch him or something. And just the fact that he's, standing tall, he's going to face them, clearly, not great odds. And he's just standing there in his underwear still, I do think it says a lot about, this guy at least having that amount of integrity. I think feels too strong, but he's willing to face the music of what he's done to some extent, and gonna write it out to whatever end. So yeah, I think that tells me a lot about the character, even in this situation. But to your point, it definitely draws to that, trope of that lone hero facing the, these...
I never said he was a hero.
Well, he could be an
lone gunman.
Yeah. I mean, hero in terms of protagonist. Yeah, maybe not characterization.
All right, jump to page 54. As a content warning, this next scene contains an example of the ideation of unaliving, as it were. So if you do not want to experience that, please skip ahead exactly 1 minute. Exterior cow pasture, day, minutes later. We start on black, then pull out of the barrel of Walt's gun. We find ourselves where the teaser left off. Walter is aiming past us, standing in his shirt and tie and underpants. Sirens are wailing. We see red lights flashing just over top of the weeds. They're racing our way. Walt has second thoughts. What the hell is he doing? He's not going to shoot anybody. The ferocity leaks out of him. Despair settles in its place. Sirens blaring. Fuck it. He sticks the muzzle in his mouth, winces hard. He yanks the trigger. Nothing. The safety's on. Walt fumbles with it, trying to figure it out. This takes him just long enough that the sirens are revealed to be fire engines, not the cops. 2 big pumper trucks curve past us, following a dirt road through the pasture we didn't see until now. All right, gonna stop there. So yeah, without getting too detailed about what we just saw, Walt has some ideas that maybe he gets some thoughts that there's a different way out of the situation, let's say. But he's actually shown to be so kind of bumbling and inexperienced that he can't even do that right. So like we know that this guy is not as hardened as like the situation may make him out to be. So like that's another example of characterization. Mm-hmm. But also we kind of get the twist reveal that these are not cops. These are fire trucks on the way to a fire. And so he kind of has like an easy way out because they're not actually after him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely a second chance. I think that it was set up in a way where as a viewer, you kind of like take that, I don't know, like that deep breath of like relief or like, you know, exhale and relief. And it doesn't seem like a cheat, you know, like he definitely was like in a bad way for a little while. You kind of saw the character suffering for a little bit. So it's like, okay, the show has to happen. He's not going to like make me die right now. But yeah, I think it was done in a way where it's believable and it doesn't seem like a cop-out. Also, I guess to your point, you know, like him getting nervous and kind of that resolve draining out of him, like they said, it does, again, get like reinforced by like the visuals that we were talking about, right? So now like, you know, this brazen person in their underwear, like aiming a gun that was like kind of, you know, a little bit more badass now just looks a little bit sad again, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very provocative.
Yeah, 100%. Okay.
They roar on by, none of the firemen taking the slightest notice of Walt. They're heading for Crazy 8's brush fire a mile away. We can see the crooked column of smoke from here. The sirens and the roar fade away. Gradually, the pasture grows silent again. Walt stares stupidly, the pistol dangling at his side. He lets it drop to the ground. He stands blinking, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Pure dumb luck? Beginner's luck? As he stands there, the door to the RV opens behind him. Dupree stumbles out, pulls off his gas mask. Half his face is swollen like a balloon, but he'll recover.
Quick pause here. This version of the pilot, Jesse is named Dupree. So just wanted to clarify that. We'll have you read Dupree's line.
Okay.
I'll pick back up as the narrator. Dupree wanders over, stands next to Walt. Dazed silence.
What happened? What'd you do?
Walt is weirdly matter-of-fact. Red phosphorus. When heat is applied, oxidizes and yields carbonyl chloride, phosgene gas. One good whiff of it. He shrugs, trails off, folds at the waist and throws up. Dupree stands, staring at nothing in particular. Walt rises, wipes his mouth. He picks up his wallet and camcorder. Gotta clean this up. Barry. He slowly wanders back to the Winnebago. Dupree follows him, off our 2 new partners who have only barely survived their first week together. Okay, so here we get more of a cliffhanger as well because Walt realizes that, okay, you have to bury the evidence of these murders that he did. Also, another characterization thing. Remember, with characterization, we said that it's helpful and or interesting to give your main character a skill, to set them apart, to have it be like their thing that they do. And Walt's thing is chemistry. And so here he actually walks, well, the Jesse character here, Dupree in this version of the pilot, through what he did, he caused a chemical reaction in the lab to produce a toxic gas that killed these 2 fellows that were, you know, after him. So that highlights another part of his characterization. And, you know, this is brought up elsewhere in the pilot, but, you know, for the purposes of, you know, we're only reading like 2 or 3 scenes here. Even just the snippet here reveals more of his character in that way.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, part of the characterization was also seeing like him coming down from like this high adrenaline like episode, right? So again, could
And
just
puking.
Yeah, could just be my bias. Yeah, part for sure, like ending with the puking. But even the fact that like at the end of this intense thing, he just like, cheated death or got a second chance, with the sirens and everything. Just the fact that he can answer the question so methodically, in terms of just
Oh,
like
yeah.
let me give you this, right? Like I do think it speaks to him like knowing the chemistry so well that he can just like say this like almost rote memorization even in the middle of this, but it's also kind
Also,
of
he's a teacher.
yeah, for sure. So like I hadn't even thought of that. That's brilliant. Just like it's showing him in that respect too, because I think Jesse's supposed to be
One of his former students.
okay. And then on top of that, like to me, it does speak also as like trauma response, right? Where you kind of like dissociate and he's just going into like automatic mode. Like he knows the chemistry so well, he can do that. And then like, yeah, the puking, right? Like it just kind of working through his system.
Nice. I also want to return to the money bit. Let me just read this next scene real quickly. Interior, white house, garage, night. Black frame, a ding, then a door opens, revealing we're inside the clothes dryer, looking out. Dry $20 bills flutter around. Weary Walt reaches in and grabs them by the fistful. Walt quickly counts the money. 8,000 and change. Walt jams it in a shoebox, snaps a rubber band around it. Remembering something, he reaches in his pocket and pulls out the tiny camcorder tape. On it, we'll remember, is the confession to his family. He doesn't destroy the tape. He thinks about it, then drops it into the shoebox full of cash. So right there, this kind of hints again at characterization where he will... So remember, like, he is a dying man. He doesn't think he has very many months to live. And so he wants his family to eventually find the money. And so he sees the tape and he probably, at least the implication here is that they're going to want an explanation as to how he got that money. And so he figures, well, this is as good as an explanation as any. So I'm just going to drop it in there. And when they get the money, they'll get as honest of a goodbye as I've ever said.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting way to sort of bring closure to that part of the plot where it's like, yes, he is getting some money, which is part of his story goal, but $8,000 is not nearly enough for like what he wants to leave behind. So he has to keep doing this. And the fact that this sort of confession, not an admission of guilt, but like a confession that something is weighing on him, that's also just going to be sitting around. And the show is kind of teasing that like he's very conflicted, at least at this point in the pilot, about the method. And again, that's another thing that we talked about with Story Engine. Like his method of trying to get the story goal of providing for his family is by cooking meth and then selling it, and that obviously is illegal. And so like he has to not only worry about gang members and whatnot, but also the authorities. And also the pilot mentions that, oh, by the way, his brother-in-law works for the DEA, who like is exactly the type of person who is responsible for catching him. So like it puts all of this stuff inside of a pressure cooker. And so, yeah, I just wanted to read that scene really quickly so that way the money issue kind of bookends it. Also, as a bit of a cliffhanger to kind of tease that, like, hey, like he doesn't have enough. How much will be enough? We don't know.
Sure.
No.
Yeah, definitely good for the story engine. Absolutely. I think for me, before like you kind of framed it that way, like him putting the camcorder into the box and
Camcorder tape.
Yeah, and putting it away. In my mind, what like the first conclusion I came to was like, oh, this guy was just in a very close call. Like he got a really lucky break, but that's not going to change anything. Like he's going to double down and, and continue. So like, yeah, definitely for me, like it did feel like, okay, we're in for this ride for the long run. Like he's going to keep doing this, so definitely like attaches to the story engine. But yeah, I hadn't thought about it like exactly in the way that you framed it. Also, I just wanted to highlight the fact that like, because this pilot was so strong, and my understanding culturally was that as a serial, like this show really did break new ground, like I guess pun intended, in terms of like how well written, how sharp, and like how original and interesting like TV could be, which I think as viewers today with streaming we can kind of take for granted, but I think at this time streaming was still not the thing. So I think it just really opened up a huge possibility for like how high quality and interesting this kind of TV could be. So I think it did elevate the art form, I think, of like TV. I don't know if that's too much to say, but like it being...
I think that's fair.
Yeah, so I think like that's something also to appreciate, like what it did in terms of like giving us even more bingeable TV like afterward.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is usually where we would do our takeaways, but we've kind of been doing them as we go because this is kind of like a recap episode to like show you all the different boxes this pilot ticks off in terms of how one of the best pilots ever written employs the stuff that we've been talking about throughout this season. So yeah, I think we'll sort of skip takeaways for this episode. But with that in mind, why don't you take us out for the season?
We hope these discussions can help writers of all walks to help diversify the media landscape even more.
And let us know in the comments if there are any shows or series you'd like us to break down in a future episode in our next season. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Jackie.
Thank you for tuning in. Take care and stay safe.
Bye.